Well, at this time of year, you're often in the place where you've got your statement of income from your employer and you're getting your tax return together. And to talk about tax and tax returns and even those occupations that the government might be targeting just to make sure that everyone's doing the right thing, let's talk to Gavin Martin from Cornerstone Wealth. Hello, Gavin. Welcome back to 2020.
Oh, g'day, Neil. It's great to be with you.
Gavin, this time of year, many of us are busy preparing our tax return, or at least we've got our documentation to our accountant. They're getting ready to put our tax return in for us. This is a time of year which we can look forward to oftentimes a healthy tax refund.
Yeah, it's a great time if you do actually have a refund coming through, and those people that do often try to get their tax in as quickly as possible. You can use an accountant, or there are lots of tools these days, and some provided by the ATO, that you can actually complete your tax return online, and it walks you through very simple steps, and sometimes easier than the paper-based form because you're skipping over certain steps where you don't need to go through them. So yeah, really important to get it in early if you are getting a refund, and if you aren't getting a refund, then your cut-off date if you're doing it yourself is the end of October. If you're using an accountant, you can actually defer that if they've requested an extension till I think closer to the end of May. So yeah, they're the timeframes that you need to think through.
Sometimes that question, Gavin, should I be using a tax accountant to help prepare my tax return? There obviously are advantages in that you're not going to miss anything. But for most people, ordinary wage earners, is it really worthwhile to go to a tax accountant?
Yeah, it's a case of you don't know what you don't know, but ideally your tax agent would save you at least the amount of their fees in savings in some way or another. But if you are just have a simple scenario where it's a salary and you might have some interest income or potentially some dividends, then doing it yourself is very much a reasonable way to do it. In fact, there's tax thresholds, so the threshold at which you pay no tax has gone from $6,000 up to $18,200. That means that a lot of people won't actually have to submit a tax return. So that enables a lot of people not to have to worry about it at all.
I guess honesty on your tax return is one of those priorities, and particularly when you're a Christian, you want to do the right thing. But it's easy to be dishonest on your tax return.
Yes, it is. It's one of those things that challenges us and our honesty. And sometimes people make genuine mistakes. They're actually trying to do the right thing and they make genuine mistakes. And the ATO is happy to work people through those mistakes and help them work through it. But I think the important thing is to really focus on what's the right thing. It is good to reduce our tax where it's possible, but really we need the tax paid so that our economies can function. We don't want to end up like a Greece or those nations that don't actually generate enough tax to function appropriately. So tax isn't necessarily a bad thing, but where we can, it's good to reduce the tax that we do pay.
Yeah, but interestingly, every year the tax office seems to have a new set of people that they target who perhaps are incorrectly doing their tax returns or over-claiming various work-related expenses. This year, does the tax office have any particular target?
Yes, each year I guess the tax office uses the information that they gather each year and look at last year's return and assess where are the areas that don't seem right, and a couple of the areas are work-related expenses that, in particular, builders and sales and marketing people or marketing managers are claiming they seem disproportionate to the level of income that they're generating. And so that's going to be the focus this year. So if you're a builder or in sales and marketing, then just be careful of what you actually claim with your work-related expenses.
What sort of issues are faced when you talk about those particular ones? You mentioned builders and sales and marketing managers. What sort of things are they typically accused of, do you know?
I don't know exactly what their concern is, but I think it's the volume really would be the key. There may be some items where they're seeing a regular amount of a particular item coming through, but generally they're not actually, when you're claiming those expenses, you don't itemise them. So I think it's more about the volume of the expenses that are disproportionate to the income. And I think as we move over time, if you do an electronic return these days, you can choose to have the ATO populate part of your return. So we might come to a point in time where we just actually say, yes, all these details that you've provided for me, they are correct, and just submit your tax return with confirming the figures. And because the ATO has so many figures these days, they have all the information on your interest coming through, what your employer paid, what share dividends you received. Because they've got so much info, they're able to really match it against other data, and I guess that's where they're seeing some items of concern for them for those particular industries and those particular vocations.
So targeting builders, sales and marketing managers, and I guess they're always concerned about some of the bigger, more complex business structures, and as I understand it, they're also targeting businesses that are working multinationally, and so there must be a lot of loopholes and things they're looking to close.
Yes, it's a big concern at the moment that the tax revenue is shrinking, and a lot of it's shrinking to multinationals utilising complex structures to get around the tax that we pay here in Australia that they potentially should be paying here in Australia. And that's, for the ATO, it's really about, we could invest a couple of million or even $10 million on trying to track this money and gather the money, but they might return or obtain additional tax in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So for them it's a worthwhile exercise to go through it and try to gather that tax that really should have been paid here in Australia.
And Gavin, as you said at the start of our conversation, oftentimes it's quick and good to get your tax return in if you know you're expecting a refund. If you're expecting a tax bill, sometimes it's easy to sort of put that on the back burner and be a bit complacent about it and why do today what you can put off till tomorrow. Is that the way people typically work?
I think it is. Yeah, often it is the case. But it is often good to get it in early so you know what you're paying it. It can also help you then plan for the coming year. You can start to work towards, even if you do have tax to pay, to get it in, know what you owe, and then try to change your scenario for the coming year so that you're not hit with some unexpected surprise the next year as well.
And I guess for families who might be expecting some sort of additional payment from Centrelink from family tax benefits, there's also an incentive to get your tax return in quickly.
Yes, it is. So there are a number of schemes that are reliant on you putting your tax return in. Things like the First Home Savers accounts, the government co-contribution, the family tax benefit supplement. So there are lots of payments that require you to submit your tax return in order to get those payments. Actually, the school kids bonus has just been paid for the mid-year, so those people that have school-aged children or either primary or secondary should have already received those school kids bonuses. And if you haven't received them, then I guess follow up to see whether you should have received those.
Well, Gavin Martin, always good talking to you on issues of finance, and particularly this time of year. It is front of mind when it comes to tax time. I'll point people to your website at www.cornerstonewealth.com.au, and just to mention that any advice that might be mentioned during our conversations is general in nature, and for those who are looking for financial advice with all the details for their own personal circumstances, they should see their personal financial advisor. Gavin Martin, a pleasure. Thanks for being with us again today on 2020.
Thank you, Neil. Great to be with you.